Welcome back to our kitchen and to another week of looking at exactly what we bought and spent on food as a family of 5 on a budget, and then exactly what we do with it each day to make it through the week. This time though, we are kicking off an entire month of looking at how the weeks string together and how we take £500 in the south of England and use it to feed our family of 5 for a whole month. It is always a stretch, but somehow it works, except right now food prices are rising. So we're going to look at what it looks like in 2026 to take that budget and use it to feed our family of 5. So this is your moment if you want to get every week to hit subscribe, and I will see you back here again next week for part 2. But let's start with week 1. If you're new here, hi, I am Kezia. Welcome to my 850 square foot home in the south of England. My goal on the internet is to normalize and simplify budget-friendly and sustainable living, because this is a home where we buck the trends of consumerism and completely buy out of that, but also in like a real life 2026 way. We are bucking those trends and reaping every brilliant benefit from doing that. So if you are trying to be more budget-friendly, more sustainable, or just think a bit differently from getting tied up in the buy, consuming is what makes us happy norms, welcome. That's what we do here, and we share our life along the way, both in the chatty kitchen table podcasty episodes and in the kind of real life vlogs and chit chats. So pull up a chair. We're going to talk about everything we ate and spent in a month and what we did with what we bought to make it through the month. Our monthly budget for food is £500. That is feeding 5 of us, myself, my husband, and my 3 kids who are 10, 8, and 4 and eat more than me at most meals. It's fun. And we are going to pop up here our total budget for the month on screen. And we're going to keep that there for the whole month, except it is going to tick down as we spend it. And we will do a mix of sitting here at the table chatting, and I will then also do a bit of showing you the meals we're making, how we're using the food, going out to the shops, what we're doing, to give you a picture of exactly what that £500 is going to do through the month and how we're going to get to the end of it. With that £500, we are buying everything that we eat and drink, both at home, on the road, eating out at home, alcohol, coffee, food, snacks, the lot. So that is everything. At the beginning of the month, it kind of breaks down. We spend a chunk of it on flour because we make all of our bread products at home, which saves a lot of money. And so that's about £30 of the month is on big sacks of flour. And that leaves us with about £15 per day, or like just over £100 a week to spend on food. And if we break that down again, it means that each person has to be fed at each meal for about £1 per person. So those are kind of the numbers which I think are really helpful when we're trying to stay on budget. I like to know those numbers. Things are having to change for all of us to hit the same budget. We are having to shop and cook and do things differently. So we're just going to look at what it is going to take to get there in real time as it happens. But let's dive into week 1. Currently, we are on day 8 of the month. So we have shopped and eaten for our first week of the month. And then we have shopped for our second week of the month too, but that will be video 2, so stay tuned. But we can take a look at the first shop of the month. So I did a Waitrose order for the first shop of the month and got a pretty normal array of food. I spent on that shop £104.57. Now you will see organic items, things that are not the cheapest version of what you can buy, because my goal with that £500 is not just to get food on the table, but it is to be as healthy, as simple food, as close to the way food is grown that we can, with the least processed in the mix, a bit of organic. That is kind of our values as we shop. And then where things like chocolate are concerned, always fair trade. So that cocoa and chocolate are 4 times the price of what they could be, but it's because of a value that's really important to us. So that was a £104 spend at Waitrose. And this was all I planned to spend. Now, I kind of look ahead at the month when we begin the month to see what's the shape of the month. And I knew that at the beginning we had a bank holiday weekend and we were camping, which is going to mean a higher spend on food because there's not the same flexibility as there is when we're home. Then I know at the end of the month, I really don't want to crawl to the end of the month because it's a half-term break and the kids are off school, where I swear they eat twice as much. I really have a value of food bringing joy and connection. And so when everyone's home for the week and it's the holiday, we tend to do things that are a little bit more fun and that often cost a little bit more money, and have some more treat things that we don't have all the time, because that just adds to the joy of time and food and being together. So I know I've got the month bookended by 2 times of higher spending, which means in the middle we're gonna have to get a little more frugal to keep that budget. But there were 3 additional spends, which took us way over our £105-ish budget for the week. But let's dive into looking at everything we ate through the week, and then we will come back here and we will talk about how we're heading into next week. For the first 3 days of the month, we were heading out camping. And so we started with a lot of food prep. If you want to see the whole camping vlog with a more detailed look at camping where we forgot nearly everything important, I will link that one below. But in terms of food, our meal plan for camping was pizzas, pesto pizza rolls, kind of a rolled up pizza with peas in because we had them, then cereal and homemade granola for breakfast with hot chocolate and coffee, and some pesto pasta, and then sausages in rolls that we made to take as well. So we kept it pretty simple in terms of not cooking a ton when we were there. We used up everything in the fridge before we left, so that's some rice and peas and soy sauce. And we took most of our food with us. I made a giant batch of bread dough. I think it was 3 times the usual, or maybe even 4. We used the same bread dough recipe for pizzas, chocolate rolls, cinnamon rolls, pesto rolls, hot dog buns, all the things, which makes it really easy to make a massive batch and then split it up into different things to food prep for a longer time. So we ate our pizzas on the way up to camping, and then saved some for the boys to take to a sports competition the next day and the girls to eat at the campsite. There were 2 additional spends while we were camping. I brought milk with us that didn't need to be refrigerated, and then 1 frozen. We didn't have a cool box, so we had to plan a little bit strategically. We used a frozen milk on the first day and then a carton of oat milk on the second day, and it worked well. We did then spend £5.60 to sit at this airfield so that we could watch the planes. I hadn't intended to get coffee out. It wasn't even a good coffee, but it was so that we could watch the planes. So that was a £5.60 spend. Our food actually ended up lasting us longer than we thought. We were going to get a meal on the road, but we ended up making pesto pasta on the final day, and we all shared and ate it out of the pot in the car on the way home. Finished up some leftover pizza to use every bit of what we had brought. And the only bit of food we did buy on the go was ice cream, which at £3.50 for a single scoop felt incredibly expensive, but it brought a lot of joy walking around the Cotswolds. The final camping spend was one that always feels worth it, and that is caffeine for the driver for safety on the road. So I grabbed 1 oat flat white for Jared. That was also £3.50, and that was a wrap on all our extra spends. Except we got home and I realised that we had not added yeast to the shopping list, and we have run out of yeast. We had a big picnic planned with friends, and I'd said I would bring all the baguettes, so we needed yeast. Tesco is now doing a new fruit for kids thing. It seems to be nationwide because we also found it en route to camping. So the kids grabbed an apple and we went home to make a ton of baguettes. We made a really random dinner, a kind of poutine, maybe? I think that's what the Canadians call it, a gravy on potatoes. Sorry, Canadians, if I have butchered what this actually is. We had some cooked peas left from the previous week. I cooked up some potatoes that were in the fridge, made gravy with some leftover camping milk and a stock cube, some butter and flour, threw on the peas, and that was what people had for dinner. Sometimes the creativity of random meals brings really good ones, and this was so good. I used a callow stock cube, which I so rarely use, but it made the most delicious gravy, and this was extreme comfort food. It was such a happy, random, use up the bits meal. My son was then still hungry, so he came back for some yogurt, the leftover camping granola, raisins, and peanut butter. By this point, we were at day 4 of the week and month, although it was a bank holiday Monday. So we started with waffles and blueberries. I've been trying to get more fruit into breakfast. Some of the kids will do it, some of them won't. But those white eggs that you saw at the beginning of this day are from our ducks. We have not been getting any eggs until we had a fox attack, and now we are getting a consistent number of eggs a day. I don't fully understand. I think something was stealing the eggs, but we will never know. This, though, is what we took to brunch. We've got brownies with some dried cornflowers from last year that I just put in a jar and saved. I think they make anything feel a little bit more special, and baguettes and little oranges as well. And then I did something I never ever do, which was to make lunches the day before. I just can't get into a routine of doing this. But we had some leftover baguettes and I turned them into cheese and Marmite sandwiches for school lunches the next day, which tomorrow Kezia really thanked me for. But I just can't get into the habit, so it probably will not happen again anytime soon. And we finished day 4 with a lentil soup, which is really just 500 grams of lentils cooked with a chopped onion and a chopped clove of garlic and salt until it is cooked. I use about double the water to the volume of lentils, and that really just is the recipe. I keep it super simple because this is one of the recipes where it's really frugal, but it also is a beloved dish by everyone in the family. And those are like the gold of saving money, where they bring a ton of joy, but they are also very frugal. If you have watched pretty much any video of ours, you know that the Waitrose coffee is one of our budget and happiness hacks. If you have a membership card, which is free, you can get a free coffee every single day from Waitrose without a purchase, as long as you bring your own mug. So we did that, and Jared bought a 8-pack of croissants, which is $4.75, so a little extra spend. We came home from omelets, and then I took a snack because I was picking a kid up early from school for a sports event, and when it's just me and them in the car, they like to have a fun little snack and make it a date moment. And then dinner that night was tacos, which are again one of these ultra frugal, high vegan protein and really loved by our family meals, which is why it's one of the things that's on the meal plan every week. Even though some people don't like that repetition, for us it's everyone's favorite meal, or one of. It's also really cheap to make, it's healthy, it's high in vegan protein, and so why would we not put it on the meal plan every week? My kids will also eat as much cabbage slaw as they are given, so it's a great way to get a lot of vegetables in where they are asking for more. Even though it's May and there's a lot beginning to grow in the garden, we're not actually harvesting that much from the garden at the moment. But one of the things alongside eggs that we are getting is rocket. You can see cherries growing on the tree there, but they won't be ready for a while. But we have rocket year round. It will grow in the greenhouse as well as outside. And so I always have a lot of that. And we often use that to supplement our produce for the week. So with homemade baguettes, eggs from the garden, and rocket, breakfast sandwiches like this are one of my favorite things, to feel like we really are feeding our family from scratch and from the garden, and it just brings me a little bit of happy joy. And people often talk about emotionally eating and try to detach food from emotions so much, but I think we are emotional beings and food is emotional for us, and I eat differently when I have different emotions, and I lean into that, and I think it's okay. And I know that there's a negative side to it, but I think sometimes we can remove the highly emotional connection that we have with food. And I think it's something we need to talk more about. This was a kid's snack before a sports practice. Some more of an ice cream that I made with some leftover cream last week. I just whipped it and blended it with berries and honey and put it in the freezer. So not real ice cream, but it was very good. I might do it again, and actually quite cheap to make. I topped it with lots of peanut butter to try and fill the kids up, and then that was a snack before a sports practice. And we've made it to the final day of this weekend meal plan and the 7th day of the month with £344 and 43 pence left. We did another round of school packed lunches, and then for lunch we're eating the leftover beans and tortillas from the night before with eggs and rocket. Eating leftovers, even if it makes messy meals or scrappy meals or different people eating different things, is such a key in keeping costs down, making sure food doesn't get wasted, and really harnessing every penny that we spend to really become food. I will say the stat over and over again, but the average family in the UK wastes £80 worth of food each month. And it doesn't happen in the obvious ways like just throwing out a meal. It's all the sneaky things like one crusty tortilla that looks inedible. So here we had one of those, and I just sprayed some water on it, put it on a hot skillet, and it came back to life. I think wetting bread like that is a wartime food hack, but so many of those wartime hacks were all about using up everything, and we can absolutely harness so much from that today. This loaf of bread then came from something that we will come back to in the next week's vlog, because this was from a waste food pickup, and most of that pickup I'm saving for next week, so I'm going to show you that in the next video. But this bread loaf was one of the things that came, and I wanted to get it sliced and into the freezer right away. It was a bit beyond eating as bread, but I knew it would toast up really well. My girls, I forgot, went to a play date, and my son requested scrambled egg and rocket in a baguette. So that is what he got for dinner. And then I never put anything in my freezer because we just kind of eat what we make. We have quite a small freezer. There's not a ton in there, but I forgot that a few weeks ago I had put in some shredded brisket. I make this about twice a year. I actually had a credit from Riverford, and I used it to buy some brisket when we were hosting, and it went such a long way. We fed about 10 people with this brisket, and there was still some left over. So I pulled that out of the freezer and put it over potatoes for my husband and I for dinner after the kids were in bed. It was so delicious. Slow cooking meat is about the only thing I do with red meat. Buy those cuts like brisket. I think this was a £20, like 20 quid cut of brisket, and it made about 15 meals. So actually per meal, a lot more frugal than I would have thought, because I added in a ton of veggies as well. And this was what was left over after feeding 10 people for a Sunday lunch. And that's where knowing those numbers is so important, because something can look expensive, but actually when you take meat, I did tacos, and so people were filling their plates with a lot of other things. It actually wasn't expensive at all to make a pulled brisket, and served everyone meat quite cheaply. But I would have thought this is a really expensive meal, but when I actually break it down per portion, it was a much more frugal way to do meat, which I didn't anticipate. I topped it with some cheese and melted it under the grill, and then a little bit of yogurt, which we use interchangeably. Not interchangeably, we use in the place of sour cream, but I wouldn't use sour cream where I wanted yogurt. Anyway, that went on top, and that was a very delicious treat feeling dinner to finish the week. So that is week one. We overspent. We know that we've balanced it out heading into week two, as long as we don't then have to buy more things to make it through the week. But that will be the next video. Hit subscribe, and then I will see you back here next week. But we're doing okay. So if you want to see more what we ate in a week videos, there are so many more that you can just binge through. There's a whole playlist of food budgeting and things like that. And if you want to see the kind of blueprint and strategy video for more meta, how I'm thinking about strategizing and the questions I'm asking myself to stay on budget even as inflation happens in front of our eyes and prices go up, I will pop that video on the screen as well, and hopefully there's some things in that that you can apply to your own life, because prices are rising around us. But thanks for being here, and I will see you in another video sometime soon.